Alright, now we're going to do one of the most important topics in all of algebra, which is factoring. And today's lesson is kind of the basis of the other types of factoring that we're going to do, which is where we're going to use the box method to factor something that is already 4 terms. And then we'll build up to what do I do if it's only 3 terms, but I need 4. So when you have 4 terms, you're going to use the box. And I underlined where we have the kind of fill in the blank. So the first fill in the blanks are, if you have 4 terms, use the box, just like we did for multiplying. Before I get going with the box, we're going to need to make sure we take out a greatest common factor. And to recap from Algebra 1, a greatest common factor is the biggest number or variable that divides evenly into both terms. So we take the numbers first, and then we look at the variables. So if I want the GCF, the greatest common factor of, I just randomly put this, you can put it on your paper if you want, 12x squared plus 16x to the 4th. You look at your numbers. So what's the biggest thing that divides evenly into 12 and 16? That's going to be 4. And when we look at variables, what you do with a variable, first of all, they need to both have that variable. They both have x, so I'm definitely going to be taking out an x. And then you take the lowest exponent. So my GCF of 12x squared and 16x to the 4th would be 4x squared. So if this was a problem, I would need to take that out first. And we'll come back to that. I'm not going to give you super complicated GCFs like you might have seen in Algebra 1. They'll be pretty basic, like 2 or 3 or x. Alright, so once you have identified that we're going to use the box, how you set it up is you put each of the 4 terms in the box, because our box is going to have 4 little tiny boxes in it. And then you're going to take the GCF out of the first row. Take out the GCF. It says as usual, but we'll go over this in the first row. So get that copied and go to the next problem. So here's our first problem. You always want to look, is there anything that goes in all 4 of my terms? No. So since there's 4 terms, I'm going to try to factor this using the box. So we're going to draw a 2 by 2 box. I'll also say, if you know how to do a different method of factoring and you're good at that, you do you, that's great. First term goes in the first box. The last term goes in the last box. Then it doesn't matter the order for the other 2, but I always do going sideways in order. So once you've filled it, you're going to take out the GCF of the first row, and you're going to put that on the side where I'm underlining. So you want to say to yourself, what is the biggest thing that goes into 5 and 10? Do not tell me 2, because 2 does not go into 5. 5 is the biggest thing that goes into 5 and 10. Then you say to yourself, what can I take out for the variable? Well, they both have an x, and then I take my lowest exponent, which is a 2. That is kind of my key part of the problem. Once I've done that, what I'm going to do is think of it like those area puzzles we did and think, what do I need to put on the top that multiplies to 5x squared to give me 5x cubed? So what times 5x squared is 5x cubed? That's just going to be a 1x. Do you need the 1? No, I'm just putting it there to emphasize the question we asked. Then I move to the right. What do I multiply to 5x squared to get negative 10x squared? Negative 2. And the bottom one, what do I multiply to 1x to get 1x? Just 1. And now all I need to do is write my final answers. So I do the top times the side. Or you can do side times top. You get exactly the same thing. So, or 5x squared plus 1 times x minus 2. Either of those is perfectly fine. The next one we kick it up a notch because we have some extra variables, but we're not going to freak out. I don't have any of the same variable in all the terms. I don't have the same number in all the terms, so we're going to jump right to the box. First term, first box. Last term, last box. The other 2 are going to get split up however your heart chooses. So let's take out the GCF in my first row. There's really a 1 in front of that x cubed, so I can't take anything out in terms of a number besides 1. But they both have x's. Take the lowest exponent, which is a 2. And now I go fill the top. What do I multiply to x squared to get x cubed? X. What do I multiply to x squared to get negative 3x squared? Negative 3. What do I multiply to x to get negative 2xy? This one, let's take it in a couple chunks. So what do I multiply to x to get negative 2x? I would get negative 2. And then since I have this y that I need, I'm going to put this. Now, I forgot to mention, this last box we haven't used, but you can check it. So if I multiply negative 2y times negative 3, that does give me a positive 6y. So my bottom right corner is correct. So that is just a nice way to check. Let's write our final answer. This time I'll do the side, x squared minus 2y, times the top, x minus 3. Now I see some larger numbers on the back. When I see larger numbers, I start thinking to myself that probably there's going to be a GCF. So let's see. The first thing I notice is that they're all even, so they're all divisible by 2. Is there anything else bigger that goes into all of them? And the answer is no. So we're just going to start with taking out the 2. Now here's my life advice to you. My life advice is to take it out right now, and then we're going to go ahead and bring down the 2 to where I'm going to write my final answer, because if you don't bring it down now, you'll probably forget it. So when I take out that 2, what we're really doing is dividing everything by 2, if you like to have a reason. So let's do that. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 18 divided by 2 is 9, and that was a minus. 40 divided by 2 is 20. And 36 divided by 2 is 18, and that was a negative. So now I'm going to focus just on the inside. On the inside, it's 4 terms, and we've already taken out our GCF. So I'm going to put those 4 terms in the box. 10m cubed, negative 9m squared. I forgot to say my first term, first box, last term, last box, but you get the gist. And now we look in the first row. By the way, you could do first row, first column, second column, but I just always do first row. So my first row, there's nothing besides 1 that goes into 10 and 9, so I can't take out any coefficients. I do have an m in both, and I take my lowest exponent, which is 2. Then we're going to fill in the top. What do I multiply to m squared to get 10m cubed? 10m. What do I multiply to m squared to get negative 9m squared? Negative 9. Move to the bottom. What do I multiply to 10m to get 20m? 2. And then check. 2 times negative 9 does give me negative 18. So I know I don't even have a question in my mind. I got the answer right. So m squared plus 2 times 10m minus 9. Now that wasn't the longest problem in the world, but you see why I already had that too? Because once again, by the time you're done doing the box, you've kind of forgotten about that too. Alright, once again we see that we have some larger numbers going on, so what do we want to try this time? I'm thinking still 2, because to 12 I think of 2, 4, 3, and 2 is the only one that's going to go into everything up there. So let's go ahead and take out the 2. Oh, I meant to do that in a color. Oh well. Take out your 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6 y cubed. Negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10 y squared. 30 divided by 2 is 15y, and negative 50 divided by 2 is negative 25. If you aren't sure if you took out the GCF, what you can do is look at what you have left over, and if nothing goes into those, then you're good with your GCF. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down my 2 where I'm going to put my answers so I don't forget it later. It would be very sad and left out. Alright, so now we put first term, first box. Once again, just to emphasize, we're going back to what's in the parentheses. Last term, last box, and then fill in the other 2 in whatever order you like. I'm trying to write with my pencil or my hand and not a stylus, so forgive it if it's more messy than normal. So we're going to take out our GCF. Yay, we finally have a semi-interesting GCF. What is the biggest number that goes into 6 and 10? That would be 2. They both have a y, and my lowest exponent is squared. Then we're going to do, what do I multiply to 2y squared to get 6y cubed? That's going to be 3y. 3 times 2 is 6. Y times y squared gives me y cubed. What do I multiply to 2y squared to get negative 10y squared? That needs to be negative 5. And we already have the y squared, so move on with your life. Let's go to the bottom. What do I multiply to 3y to get 15y? That's going to be a 5. And then double check your last box. 5 times negative 5 does give me negative 25. And then just fill in your parentheses. Left side is 2y squared plus 5. And the top is 3y minus 5. And last one, I see a lot of numbers, so I see I take out a 2. I also notice that there's an x in every term. Do you see that? All of them have an x, so I'm actually going to have a GCF this time of 2x that I'm going to take out. So I'm dividing everything by 2x. What that's going to do is decrease my exponents by 1. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. X to the 4th over x is going to be x cubed. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X cubed over x is x squared. Negative 6x squared divided by 2x is negative 3x. And negative 4x over 2x is positive 2. Bring down that GCF we just took out so we don't forget it in the end. And now we're going to use the box for the inside, what we have left over. Okay, first term, first box, last term, last box. The other 2, it doesn't matter. By the way, I say it doesn't matter. What it does is just switch basically your sides of your box. It just switches your length and width. So looking at my first row, nothing besides 1 goes into 3 and 2. So move to the variable. They do both have a variable. And I can take the lowest exponent, which is going to be just squared. Then let's fill in the top. What do I multiply to x squared to get 3x cubed? That would be 3x. What do I multiply to x squared to get 2x squared? That's 2. What do I multiply to 3x to get negative 3x? That's negative 1. And then I can always check negative 1 times 2. Oops, I lost a negative somewhere. Ah, did you find it? I found it right here. That should have been a minus. And so now if I check it, negative 1 times positive 2 does give me negative 2. So that's a way you can check to make sure you didn't make a mistake somewhere. So x squared minus 1 times 3x plus 2. Now, someone out there is probably thinking, can't we keep factoring x squared minus 1? Yes, but we haven't talked about how to do that this year, so we are good with that final answer for right now. Make sure to snap your pictures and load them to Google Classroom.